Lesson 4, Part 1, Layer Basics. Open Photoshop and reset your default preferences in the process. Remember that you hold Control-Alt-Shift for Windows and Command-Option-Shift on a Mac. Click Yes to delete the Adobe Photoshop settings file. Once you're in Photoshop, go to Mini Bridge at the bottom of your screen. Your Mini Bridge may be collapsed, so you may need to double-click its tab to open Mini Bridge. You may also open Mini Bridge by going to File, Browse in Mini Bridge. If you have not already launched Adobe Bridge in the background, you may need to do that also. From Mini Bridge, access your favorites, and from your favorites, access your Lessons folder, and then Lesson 4. In the Lesson 4 folder, you will see 5 files. You will see the end file, which is a postcard that you're going to create. You will see the start file with a pineapple, the beach photograph, the family photo for an extra credit activity, and then another flower. There is a flower present in the original image, so that is flower 2. Double-click upon the end file to open it in Photoshop, and let's analyze how this file was built. As you can see, we have a postcard that was created for print, and this postcard contains, from the back layer to the foreground layer, a sky background, a pineapple, 2 flowers, a beach photo, a postmark, and 2 sets of text, Hawaii and Island Paradise. Now that's what it looks like to the eye, but the way this was built, the structure of the file, is found in the Layers panel. If you do not have your Layers panel visible, you could go to Window, Layers to open the Layers panel. And in the Layers panel, we'll look at the stacking order of this image from the top down. The image has a border as the topmost layer. That would be the layer that is closest to you in the stack of layers that build this postcard. So the border is the white edge that you see here. You have the postage stamp layer. That is the postage stamp object that you see here in the center. You have the Hawaii layer, the text that you see at the bottom. Now I did say text. That's a text layer that has likely been rasterized and converted to pixels because it does not have the big T thumbnail that you'll see here in just a moment. You have the flower layer, which is the flower in the upper right-hand corner. You have the beach layer, which is the smaller photograph of the beach here in the center. You have the type layer, Island Paradise. You see the type icon. That type icon tells you that this is still a type layer. That's the Island Paradise at the bottom. Below that, you have a hue and saturation adjustment layer. You'll also notice the small icon that points downward to tell you that this hue and saturation layer has been clipped into the layer below it and is only affecting that layer and not all other layers that fall below the adjustment layer. That affects the flower in the lower left-hand corner. You will also note that you have the pineapple copy layer and the original pineapple layer. That was done to enhance the look of the pineapple by changing the blending mode. So there are 2 pineapples, and one of those images is on top of the other image with an enhanced blending mode. Then you have the clouds background, which sits over the original white background layer. Within the Layers panel, you will note on the left that you have a visibility column. You can click upon one of the icons. I'm clicking on the eye icon for border, and that would hide the visibility of the border layer. If you click that again, you will show the visibility of the border layer. So the visibility for each of these layers can be hidden or shown. Any layers where their visibility is hidden, those layers will print without that object being visible, although the object is still a part of the file because its visibility is hidden. You will also note that some of the layers have an FX, which stands for a layer style, or maybe you might think of that as a special effect. Those FX styles were added after the layer was created. That can be done through the menu by choosing Layer, Layer Style, and choosing one of the options. It can also be done by going to the bottom of the Layers panel and clicking upon the FX, which is usually my habit. So we have 4 layers that have enhanced layer styles. Other things you might notice from the layers panel: the background layer is locked. In a new image that does not have a transparent background, the background layer will always be locked, and the background layer may be a solid color or it may contain a photographic type image. Any object or pixel data could remain or be visible on the background layer. Many people choose to leave the background completely empty of pixel data except for a solid color, and then build on top of that so they gain control of all of the objects that are stacked on top of the background. So that's a look at the end file. We're going to close that file and begin building this file ourselves. When you go to close the file, if it asks you if you want to save it, don't save it. We were just reviewing the file. Go back to MiniBridge and double-click upon the 04 start file to open it in Photoshop. When the file opens, you'll see just a picture of the pineapple. As you go to the Layers panel for an analysis, you will see that they have given us the postage stamp layer, the Hawaii layer, the flower layer, but the visibility of those layers has been turned off. We only see the white background layer and the pineapple layer. That brings us to page 93 in the textbook. What we're going to do is we're going to go to page 94 and we're going to add another image to this compilation of images that we have called 04 Start. Before we begin, though, and I do this frequently, we should save a duplicate copy. Access your File menu, go to Save As, and change the name of this file from 04 Start to 04 Working. That way we won't modify the original image. Say OK to maximize the compatibility. Now open a second image in Photoshop by going down to MiniBridge, which you probably still have open. Double-click upon the beach image. Once you double-click upon the beach image, it opens in Photoshop, and you will note from the tabs that you have 2 images open, and you can switch to either of those images by clicking upon the tab. We want to bring the beach image into the postcard image, and to do so it would be easier for us to view both of them at the same time. To do that, go to the window menu at the top, choose Arrange, and then choose 2 up vertically. That will place the 2 open images on your screen side by side. That way you will be able to easily drag one image into the other. Make the beach image active by clicking upon its tab, then look in the Layers panel. You will see that the beach image only has 1 layer and it has a default name of Layer 1. Double-click upon the text Layer 1 and rename that layer Beach. Now that the layer has been renamed, choose your Move tool and drag the beach image into the pineapple image. When you release, the beach image is placed into the pineapple image, and it is placed above the active or currently selected layer in that image when you were last using the image. I'm going to go ahead and close the beach file, and if it asks me if I want to save it, I will say no, don't save. And I have my composite image. In the Layers panel, you will see that my active or selected layer when I left this image was the postage stamp layer. And I really want the beach image to appear lower in the stacking order. So I'm going to drag that beach image down to above the background image. When I do so, I'm dragging it by holding the mouse. When I do so, it's placed underneath the pineapple. Well, I'm not going to be able to see it. Remember, the pineapple was going to be sort of a part of the background right above the clouds that we'll add later. So let's drag the beach image above the pineapple. Now you see the beach image above the pineapple. It may not be centered on the screen. You can drag it to the center if you choose to. We're going to be resizing it and then also putting it into a different location in a moment. But the beach image is now on top of the pineapple layer. Your stacking order is important because the layers that appear at the top will be closest to the eye, and those that appear at the bottom of the stack will be the farthest away from the eye. That brings us to, it looks like page 96. On page 96, it has us relocate the image and then look at some of the other layers. Turn on the eye by clicking in the left column of the postage stamp layer, and you will see the postage stamp across the top of your image. Turn on the eye or click in the left column for Hawaii, and you will see the Hawaii text at the bottom. Click the icon for visibility for the flower, and you will see it in the upper left-hand corner. So at the moment, we are looking at all of the visible layers, and you can see how they are stacked on top of one another. A shortcut that you might want to know, we want to work with only the beach image at this moment. If you go to the visibility column for the beach image and you hold down Alt while you click upon the visibility icon, you ask to display only the current image, or only the current layer I should say, and hide all of the other layers. So you can see now that all I'm looking at is the beach image. If I were to Alt or Option click that again, I would be looking at all of the visible layers in the image. So one more time, I'm going to Alt or Option click the visibility icon for the beach layer so that I see only the beach layer. The first thing I'd like to do is add a layer style to that layer. As I mentioned earlier, you could use the menu option, Layer, Layer Style, and choose the stroke option. But I prefer to make certain that the layer is active or selected. I can tell that because it's sort of a dark shade of blue. I go to the bottom of the Layers panel and click the FX. Clicking the FX, I have a shortcut menu which appears, and this allows me to select the layer style which I would like to add to the current layer. I'm going to choose Stroke. Now I can move the layer style dialog box to the side so that I can watch my layer and the changes that occur to it as I add the layer style. Make certain that the preview box is checked so that these changes will be visible to you as you add them. On the settings, for the size of the stroke, we want to set the stroke to 5 pixels. You can use the slider, or you can actually type the number into the box. We want the position of the stroke to be inside the graphic, so that will move the stroke inside the graphic rather than to the outside. We want to set the blending mode to normal. We want the opacity to be 100%. We want the color to be white. We're going to click the color box and choose white in the upper left hand corner and click OK. Now we can see, barely see, the white border around the image. We're going to click OK to accept the layer style, and you'll notice in the Layers panel that the beach layer now has an FX, denoting that this layer has a layer style. There is an collapse and expand icon to the right. When I expand the layer style, it tells me that I have added effects of stroke. If I were to double click upon stroke, I open the layer style dialog box and have the ability to modify the stroke. If I don't want to make any changes, I could just cancel or say OK, and I still retain the layer style. Notice the eye icons. You can turn off the visibility of a single layer style or all layer styles by clicking the eye for the layer style itself. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that layer style and move on with rearranging our layers. On page 99 of the textbook, it tells us to make certain that we make the postage stamp layer visible, the Hawaii layer visible, the flower layer visible, the pineapple layer visible, and the background layer visible. I did those one at a time, but remember I could have Alt-clicked the eye icon on the beach layer to make all layers visible. You can see them all on your screen right now. Now we want to go to the Layers panel and drag the beach layer up so that it's positioned between the pineapple and the flower. I've already done that. I have my beach layer between the pineapple and flower. If you'd followed the text, your beach layer may have been here, below the pineapple. Just drag it up one step and it will be one step higher in the stacking order. Now we're going to change the opacity of the postage stamp layer. You see right now how dark the postage stamp is, its visibility on the screen. Select the postage stamp layer, and the opacity for that layer is here at the top of the Layers panel when the layer is currently selected. It is set to 100%, and there are several ways to change that. You can drop the arrow down and use the slider. You may also type 25% into the box, or you can quickly from your keyboard type 25, and that will actually change the opacity to 25. For 10% opacity setting, you just press 1. For 20%, 2. This is a shortcut. It's the number keys across the top of your keyboard. 30%, a 3, 40%, a 4. When you want a fractional percentage, they have to come close together. So if you wanted 25, it's 25 quickly. I normally do that rather than use the slider or the drop down. That changes your ability to see through that layer. So the opacity setting of 25% displays the postage stamp like this. Opacity, when something is opaque, you cannot see through it. And when it's transparent, you can see through it. So what we might say is 0% opacity is transparent. 100% opacity setting is non-transparent or solid. So 25%, this is a little closer to being transparent than it is to being solid. It's a low opacity setting. We have reduced the opacity setting of that layer, and it would be a good time for us to save our file. You could go to File, Save, but a good shortcut is just hold down your Command or your Control key and press an S, which I'm doing. We're going to duplicate a layer and change its blending mode. Click the eye icon next to the Hawaii flower and beach layers to hide them. Hawaii, flower, and beach layers. We're looking at only the pineapple layer. Now we want to duplicate the pineapple layer, and there are several ways to do that in Photoshop. If you have the Move tool, you can Alt drag it. You can use the Layer menu. You can use the menu on the Layers panel. You can drag to the new layer icon at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to the pineapple layer to make it active, and I'm right-clicking upon it. Notice that I right-clicked out here in an open area, and I'm saying Duplicate Layer. A dialog box appears asking you what you would like to call the duplicate layer and what document you would like to place that duplicate layer in, because it could be placed in another open document. I'm going to accept the defaults and click OK. The duplicate pineapple layer appears on top of the original pineapple layer, and both of their visibilities are present. I don't see any change in the document because the topmost pineapple layer is not transparent. There's no setting that would allow me to see the pineapple layer down below. We're going to go to an area of the Layers panel called Blending Modes, and by default, blending modes would be set to normal. When I drop the arrow down, I have several options to change the blending mode, and the way this works, it will cause the current layer to blend with the pixel layers below it to create different effects, either lighten or darken, or several different mixes that we can get. In this instance, we're going to overlay. Now watch the pineapple. You can barely see at the distance from my Layers panel, but watch the changes in the pineapple when I choose the overlay blending mode. It's as if the top pineapple strengthens the colors within the pineapple down below. They're stacked on top of each other in the overlay, so their colors in effect are multiplied. And that blending mode is not visible within the layer structure, only from the setting at the top of the Layers panel that says Overlay. On the postage stamp layer, which is very difficult to see right now, we're going to go to the postage stamp layer, and we're going to change its blending mode to Multiply, and that will in effect darken it just a bit, and it will create different changes as it's laid on top of the pixels of other layers due to the color mix that will occur from those other layers. Let's go ahead and save our file with a Control S and end part 1 of Lesson 4.